Have you ever pondered about the source of the worrisome, anxious, and depressing thoughts that occupy your mind? To liberate yourself from the confines of the mind, it is crucial to recognize that you are not your thoughts, and there is no identifiable thinker. You must understand that there is no external entity in your brain responsible for generating these thoughts, and there is no inherent self that creates them. Certain thoughts can emerge either based on the belief and sensation of being an individual self or, in the absence of such a belief and sensation, based on the inherent qualities of consciousness. The ego is not a distinct entity, but rather an operation of thinking and feeling. While some thoughts are influenced by the notion of separation, others arise purely from consciousness without being filtered through this belief. For example, all emotions ultimately arise from love and are a manifestation of love. However, when love is filtered through the lens of separation, it may manifest as hatred. This occurs because the illusion of separation can obscure and distort love, causing it to manifest as hatred. Consciousness has the freedom to manifest in any form it chooses, but when it localizes itself in the form of a finite mind, it overlooks its true nature and accepts its senses and perceptions as reality. This is because the nature of localization is to perceive and comprehend everything from the perspective of that finite mind, which is prone to accepting the information it receives from its senses and thoughts. The self-proclaimed thinker, or me, is just another thought, as the ego is cunning in its pursuit of identity. It may present itself in the form of positive thoughts or the knowledge one has acquired, but these are all mere thoughts. The sense of oneself as an active participant is simply another mental construct. One can verify this truth firsthand by observing the experience of watching a video, which may feel like an active process, but in reality, there is no doer or agent behind it. It all comes back to the concept of the me, which is just another thought. While it may feel like we are the ones controlling our thoughts, the reality is that thoughts are just happening, and we don't have as much control over them as we think we do. If we could control them, it would be easy to put an end to overthinking, anxiety, fear, and suffering. However, this is not the case. The reason these thoughts hold so much power over us is that we identify with them as being ours and believe that we are the ones thinking them. This is where most people struggle in meditation, as they believe they need to do something, but in reality, meditation is simply being present with whatever is happening, including thoughts. The mind is a tool that should be used for specific tasks and set aside once completed. However, most people's thinking is repetitive, useless, and often negative, leading to a loss of vital energy. This compulsive thinking is like an addiction, where you feel you no longer have a choice to stop, and it gives a false sense of pleasure that ultimately leads to pain. People identify themselves with their minds and create a false self or ego, which is based on their past experiences and future projections. This ego is concerned with survival and fulfillment, projecting itself into the future and misperceiving the present through the lens of the past. The present moment holds the key to liberation, but as long as you are identified with your mind, you cannot find it. While thinking is a valuable gift, the predominance of mind has become a monster that threatens our existence. We must evolve beyond this stage of consciousness urgently. Thinking and consciousness are not the same. Consciousness is not limited to thinking, as thinking cannot exist without consciousness, but consciousness can exist without thinking. Enlightened individuals rise above thinking, rather than returning to a state below thought such as that of animals or plants. In an enlightened state, the thinking mind is still used, but in a more focused and efficient manner. The internal dialogue is no longer involuntary, and inner stillness is present. In order to think creatively, one must oscillate between thought and no mind, or consciousness without thought, which allows thought to have real power. Thought alone, disconnected from the greater realm of consciousness, becomes barren, insane, and destructive. The mind is a survival machine and is not inherently creative. True artists and scientists create from a place of no mind, from inner stillness. The intelligence at work within the body is far greater than the mind, and when the mind reconnects with it, it becomes a wonderful tool that serves something greater than itself. We tend to give power to every thought that arises, which can be destructive. However, the good news is that we are not these thoughts, we are the awareness of them. Without awareness, these thoughts wouldn't exist. It's essential to constantly inquire about this to break through and realize it. Engaging in a practice of self-inquiry, questioning the nature of our thoughts and the idea of a separate me, can help us recognize that the sense of a separate self is just another thought, and our true nature is pure awareness. Although thoughts may arise in our minds, we are not the thinkers of them, we are merely the awareness of these thoughts without any sense of a separate doer. By not reacting to every single thought that arises and becoming still, we can see clearly that we are that which is aware of the thoughts, not the thinker of them. The truth is that thoughts and words are empty, and we are the ones who give them power and meaning. The sense of me doing something can be seen through right now. Realizing what feels like the me and questioning it can help us understand that we cannot be the body because what we are is aware of it. The me cannot be found no matter how long we look because it doesn't exist, it's just a story. This realization brings us closer to the freedom we seek, which is already free. We are not identified with the thinker, but rather the awareness that lies behind our thoughts. When we observe our thoughts with detachment and without attempting to control them, we begin to see that these thoughts do not belong to us, they are merely passing through our awareness like clouds in the sky. We can either engage with them or let them go, but they do not reflect our true self. By realizing that the sense of a doer is an illusion, we can liberate ourselves from the restrictions of our own thoughts and behaviors. We can live in a perpetual state of awareness, observing our thoughts without any attachment or judgment. This can lead to greater peace, clarity, and satisfaction in our lives. In conclusion, the idea of a doer is nothing more than an illusion. We are not the thinkers behind our thoughts, but the awareness behind them. By recognizing this truth, we can release ourselves from the limitations of our minds and experience a fuller present moment.